One of the things that's always been interesting to me is how so many people that begin to be involved in memorial projects think that memorials are by definition healing and will bring peace to a community. And it's clear, at least from the places that I've been blessed to write about and consult with, that that may in fact happen, but it's much more likely that these kinds of memorial projects open as many wounds as they heal. And I've grown really suspicious of terms like healing and how they're used in the culture. And so what I want to do is to think with you this morning about some things that have lingered for me from different experiences in some of the ways that wounds stay raw or get reopened. And I want to do this by focusing on a couple of specific topics. One is the issue of language, terms, names, how we characterize things, and how language, in fact, can really be the salt in some of these things. And then secondly, something, again, that I've thought about for a long time, an experience that I had in going to a place that's been officially forgotten, and how officially forgotten places become intensely remembered because they've been officially forgotten. At this conference in Cheyenne, at the site of the Ouachita, on the first anniversary of the battlefield coming into the Park Service, I joined University of New Mexico historian, colleague, and good friend Paul Hutton, and Henrietta Mann, Montana State University professor of Native American Studies, and a Cheyenne tribal member. We were on a panel at the symposium focusing on just this issue of battle or massacre. And I continue to think, and would like you to think, about how our conversation revealed very different voices, each emerging from different worlds of memory and experience. In her remarks, Henrietta Mann made it clear that the location from which she spoke was a powerful and compelling one for her. I have come back to this site, she said, that constitutes my body as a Cheyenne person. My body as a Cheyenne person. To this very sacred ground for us as a people. I look at this from my heart, from the people to whom I belong as a Cheyenne woman. For her, this was clearly a massacre. How can a battle be fought, she asked, against women and children, young and old alike? Custer, she said, was carrying out the military policy of his time in which the prevailing philosophy was total extermination. Paul Hutton thought the term massacre was a problem at the Ouachita. He characterized the event as different from the massacre at Sand Creek or Santa Anna's slaughter of Texans at Goliad during the Texas Revolution. Ouachita revealed, he said, the sad nature of Indian warfare in the far west, government troops assaulting villages at dawn. I took issue with Professor Mann's claim that total extermination was government policy. Genocidal episodes, yes. Exterminationist rhetoric, yes. Attempts at cultural genocide, yes. But, I said, had it been the SS riding over the hill into a village of Jews, there would have been no prisoners. Professor Mann's aunt, sitting in the audience, responded in the following way. I notice, as some of you must have, that the two gentlemen on the panel do not have any ties or feel the way the Cheyenne feel about Ouachita. It should be the massacre of the Cheyenne people at Ouachita. And I've noticed there is only one Indian on the panel with two white men. This is the way we have been put through all these years. Paul Hutton responded graciously, I believe Dr. Mann has us outnumbered, though, in every way. Thankfully, the symposium did not devolve into argument and bitter feeling at all, but the very interesting mix of people in attendance worked hard at listening to and talking with one another. I have thought often about this exchange, not talked about it much really, about the power of felt history, and whether there are perhaps places or times not to challenge it out of respect for the suffering out of which that voice speaks. Or is the issue of language, particularly the use of terms like massacre, genocide, extermination, important enough to be clear about that people need to struggle with these issues, particularly in a symposium setting? Was my voice simply out of place? And I mean that quite literally, out of place. A voice speaking out of the privilege, the luxury, the emotional distance in which supposedly important distinctions become clear. I certainly did not represent any significant stakeholder group in the interpretive process at the Ouachita. I was just an invited conference participant. To one of the publics in the room, my words were flat, devoid of the wisdom of oral tradition and shared suffering, out of which the words that I spoke would not come. So were there places where my words would have been appropriate? Perhaps in the presence of other publics, in the classroom, in a book, or in an article, or in a lecture somewhere other than the Ouachita. But in that room, near that site, during that occasions, they were words that spoke not at all to the impassioned ownership of a tragic story. They simply registered for some people as insensitive and offensive. There are so many of these kinds of issues of language, of toxic sites, of how rituals of remembrance can open wounds and close wounds. And I want to leave you today with a phrase that I think captures the notion of reconciliation in a way that doesn't ignore the fact that any form of memorialization opens as many wounds as it closes. And I take this from Edward Ball's wonderful book, Slaves in the Family. It's, I think, a good way of thinking about reconciliation. Reconciliation is not about being nice. It's not about pretending that things were other than they actually were. This kind of reconciliation, based upon misrepresentation and the softening of realities, is not true reconciliation and will not last. Reconciliation is about being able to look the tragedy of American history in the eye. It's about coming to terms with the violence and suffering, chaos and anger and fear in our heritage, and saying, we accept this, and together we will transcend it. Thank you very much.